She was 12 years old when a banker handed her 68 acres of worthless land as a joke and laughed while he did it. 15 years later, his $2.3 million project couldn't move a single inch without her permission. Callum Pruitt had not panicked in 11 years of property law. He panicked on a Thursday morning in October. He was pacing his office at 7:42 a.m., phone pressed hard against his ear, talking to no one who could actually fix the problem. His client, Hartwell Regional Development Group, had 14 months of permits, $2.3 million in signed contractor agreements, and a groundbreaking scheduled for the first week of November. None of it could move. Not one shovel, not one survey pin. Because of 68 acres. Because of a name nobody at Hartwell had ever searched. Nora Callan. Pruitt pulled the deed on his screen and stared at the signature date. March 1st, 2010. He did the math. She had been 12 years old. Carver County, March 1st, 2010. The fairground smelled like burnt coffee and old folding tables. A sheriff's deputy stood near the back wall. 4 locals sat in plastic chairs with nothing better to do on a cold Tuesday morning than watch a bank take a family's farm. Dale Callan sat in the 3rd row with his hat in his hands. His daughter Nora sat beside him. She was 12. She wore a green coat 2 sizes too big. Her hands were folded in her lap. The auctioneer read the parcel numbers in a flat voice. 280 acres, 3rd generation, corn and soybean. Assessed at $214,000. Boyd Strickland stood near the coffee table at the side of the room. He was the regional loan officer for First Meridian Savings, and he had the look of a man who had already decided how the morning would go. He wore a pressed shirt. He drank his coffee like a man who owned things. The Callan farm had been in Boyd's crosshairs since 2007, not because of a missed mortgage payment, because of a $12 late fee on a refinancing escrow adjustment that Boyd's own office had processed wrong and then recorded as a default. 3 years of letters, 2 hearings, 1 failed appeal. Boyd had not lost sleep over any of it. The gavel came down at $214,000. Boyd signed the transfer at 10:47 a.m. and smiled at nobody in particular. He walked toward the door. He passed the Callans. He stopped. In his briefcase he had a secondary deed, the northeast parcel. 68 acres of low bottomland that First Meridian had quietly separated from the main lot. It had flooded twice in the 1990s. The county had assessed it at $28,000, and nobody at the bank wanted it sitting on their books. Boyd pulled the deed from his briefcase and set it on the folding table in front of Nora. He clicked his pen. "Going away present," he said. "That piece has been a headache since before you were born." One of the locals laughed. Boyd smiled. He was already thinking about lunch. Nora looked at her father. Dale Callan gave one small nod. Nora picked up the pen. She signed her name. 12 years old. Steady hand. No hesitation. Boyd Strickland walked out of the Carver County Fairgrounds still smiling. He did not look back. He did not think about the girl again for 15 years. He should have looked back. Dale drove them home in silence. Nora sat in the passenger seat with the deed folded once, then tucked into the inside pocket of her green coat. Not because someone told her to keep it, because she had known for 8 months that she would need it. She did not say this to her father. She watched the fields go by outside the window. The bottomland sat a half-mile off the county road, flat and wet and brown in March. It looked like nothing. It looked exactly like what Boyd Strickland thought it was. That was the point. At home, Nora's mother, a woman named June who had been quietly holding the family together since the first letter from First Meridian arrived, made lunch without asking how the auction went. She already knew. She set 3 plates on the kitchen table and sat down. Nobody talked. After lunch, Nora went to her room. She opened the drawer of her desk and pulled out a blue spiral notebook. She had written her name on the inside cover in permanent marker. She had been writing in it since the previous August. She opened it to a page near the middle. A hand-drawn map. Not perfect, but careful. Lines measured. Numbers written small in the corners. She looked at it for a long time. Then she folded the deed twice and tucked it between the notebook's back cover and its last page. She closed the notebook. She put it in the drawer. Downstairs, Boyd Strickland was already telling someone on the phone that the auction had gone fine. Better than expected. Clean sweep. Nora said nothing to anyone. She already knew something that nobody else in Carver County knew. The only question was how long she would need to wait before it mattered. Before the next part of this story drops, hit subscribe, because what Nora does next is something nobody in that courtroom saw coming. August 2009, Carver County Public Library. A girl sitting alone at the back table with a stack of county records that hadn't been touched in 40 years. The librarian, Mrs. Ellsworth, remembered her. Not because children often came in asking for microfiche. They didn't. She remembered Nora because the girl came back every Saturday for 6 weeks and always asked for the same drawer. Road Commission Abandonments, MISC, 1955 to 1963. Nora was 11 that summer. She had no phone. She had the blue notebook, a pencil, and 5 hours every Saturday while her father worked. She had started looking because of a question that didn't make sense. Boyd Strickland's bank had been circling the Callan farm for 2 years by then. Nora had read every letter they'd sent. Not because anyone asked her to, because the letters were on the kitchen table and she was the kind of girl who read what was in front of her. One line in the third letter kept catching at her. The northeast parcel has been excluded from the primary collateral assessment. She was 11. She didn't know what collateral meant. She looked it up. Then she asked herself why a bank would not want 68 acres of their own collateral. Banks wanted everything. That was what banks did. Unless the 68 acres had a problem the bank already knew about. She found the 1956 survey on her fourth Saturday. It was a large folded sheet tucked inside a filing envelope labeled CR12 Northern Bypass Proposal. The road had never been built. Funding ran out in 1959, but the corridor, a planned right-of-way running northeast out of town, had been formally surveyed and approved. The corridor ran directly through the Callan bottomland. Nora drew it in her notebook. She measured it twice against the plat map. She checked her numbers. The corridor was real. The abandonment filing was in a different drawer. She found it on her sixth Saturday, April 14th, 1961. A county commissioner's memo formally dissolving the Northern Bypass project. 2 pages. The second page had a conditions clause at the bottom in small print. Nora read it 3 times. Any landowner maintaining uninterrupted agricultural use of land within the original corridor boundary would retain a standing easement claim against future infrastructure development crossing that corridor. She wrote the date. She copied the clause word for word. She underlined one phrase, uninterrupted agricultural use. Her grandfather had farmed that bottomland every year since 1961. She knew because she had helped him plant sorghum there when she was 8. He liked sorghum. He said it was the only crop that didn't complain about wet feet. He had been farming inside a legal corridor for 48 years and never once known it. Nora went home that afternoon and sat at the kitchen table with her notebook open. June was washing dishes. She glanced over once. "What are you drawing?" "A map." "Of what?" "Our land." June dried her hands. She walked over and looked at the notebook, the hand-drawn corridor, the measurements, the copied clause. She was quiet for a moment. "Is that something?" she asked. Nora didn't look up. "Yeah." June went back to the dishes. She didn't ask anything else. That was how June worked. She waited until a thing was finished before she asked how it went. Nora spent the fall tracking. She walked the bottomland in October and found the corner markers her grandfather had set in 1963. Still there. Iron rods, flush with the soil, easy to miss if you didn't know where to look. She photographed them with her father's old camera. She taped the prints into the notebook. She found the tax records at the county assessor's office in November. Every year since 1961, the northeast parcel had been listed as active agricultural use. Every year, flood years included. The county had taxed it. Dale had paid, never missed a year. 63 years of consecutive use. In early 2009, she started seeing something else. LLC filings in the county recorder's database. Small purchases. 5 acres here, 12 acres there, all along the northeastern corridor. Different names on each filing, but the registered agent on every single one was the same firm out of the city. A real estate firm. She wrote each purchase date and acreage in the notebook. She drew each parcel on her map. She connected the dots. Someone was assembling land. Someone was building a path. And that path had one gap in it. 68 acres of low bottomland that nobody had cared about since the Truman administration. Nora sat at the kitchen table on a Sunday evening in December 2009 and looked at her hand-drawn map. The kettle had been on for 10 minutes. She hadn't poured it yet. The entire assembled corridor was useless without the northeast parcel. Without the Callan bottomland, the path didn't connect. A developer couldn't run infrastructure through a gap, couldn't build a road, couldn't lay a line, couldn't do anything that required a continuous corridor from point A to point B. And inside that parcel, inside that 68 acres of worthless floodland, was an easement claim that had been sitting quietly in a county records drawer since 1961, waiting for someone to read it. She closed the notebook. She picked up the kettle. She poured her tea. The trap wasn't set by anything she had done. It had been set in 1961 by a county commissioner who wrote 2 pages of conditions that nobody ever checked again. She had just found it. $12,000. That was the number the man on Nora's porch said first, before he even told her his name. He held a clipboard and wore a jacket that had never seen a muddy field. He smiled like someone who practiced smiling. "Preston," he said. "Hartwell Regional Partners." He explained the land was prone to flooding. He explained the county assessed it at $28,000. He explained that $40,000, he had revised upward in the same breath, was generous given the circumstances. Nora was 19. She was wearing her work boots. There was creek mud on the left one. She looked at the clipboard. She looked at Preston. "No thank you," she said. He blinked. He had not expected that sentence. He explained the offer again, slightly louder, as if the problem was volume. Nora thanked him for stopping by. He left. He sat in his car at the end of the gravel lane for almost 2 minutes before pulling out. She watched him go from the porch. Inside, June was at the kitchen table reading. She looked up. "Salesman? Sort of," Nora said. June went back to reading. That was the end of it. Nora mowed the strip twice a year, spring and fall, the old push mower her grandfather had kept in the equipment shed, which she had oiled and sharpened every March since she turned 15. Every spring she paid the tax bill, $214 a year. She paid it on time. She kept the receipts in a manila envelope in the kitchen drawer, each one rubber-banded to the county statement. She kept the corner markers clear. Twice she found survey flags near the eastern edge that hadn't been there the week before. She photographed them and wrote the dates in her notebook. She didn't call anyone. She didn't file anything. She just watched. The second offer came by phone in the fall of 2018. A man named Fitch. He spoke with the calm authority of someone who represented a county government and expected that to mean something. He said the county was considering an infrastructure corridor through the northeast grid. He said they had eminent domain authority. He said $90,000 was a fair number for a parcel that had flooded twice in the last 30 years. He said it the way people say things they expect to end conversations. Dale Callan took the call. Nora was sitting across the kitchen table, notebook open, listening. She wrote $90,000. County. Eminent domain mentioned, not invoked. Dale told Fitch the family wasn't interested in selling. Fitch asked if they understood what eminent domain meant. Dale said they understood it hadn't been filed yet. A long pause on the line. Fitch said he'd be in touch. He wasn't. Legal had apparently flagged something they weren't ready to explain at a public hearing. The county never filed. Nora's daughter Clara was 9 that year. She asked her mother once, standing at the edge of the bottomland in her rubber boots, why they kept mowing land that nobody used. Nora had looked at the field for a moment. "Because it's ours," she said. Clara had thought about that. "Okay," she said. She didn't ask again. 3 years passed, the way the quiet years do, with nothing dramatic and everything slow. Then the third offer came. Summer of 2021. A black sedan at the end of the lane. A man in a jacket that cost more than Fitch's entire county salary. He introduced himself as Reeve. He worked directly for Hartwell Regional Development Group. He sat at the kitchen table. Nora poured coffee. She gave him a cup and kept hers. Reeve explained that Hartwell had a significant development project in the Northeast Corridor. He said the project had been in planning for 6 years. He said the parcel was the final piece. He said $480,000. He said it the way people say numbers they believe will close rooms. Nora asked what phase of financing the project was in. He told her. She asked when the ground lease on the northern grid was set to expire. He paused. He told her. She thanked him for the coffee visit. She told him she'd be in touch. He left. He called his supervisor from the car. He said the woman seemed sharp but would come around. Everyone came around at $480,000. In the city, Boyd Strickland, retired now, living 40 minutes from Carver County, was on the Hartwell Advisory Board. He had been told the northeast parcel was the last holdout. He had not been told whose name was on the deed. He found out in September 2021. He went very still when he heard it. His lawyer, Pruitt, watched him from across the desk. "She's the girl from the auction," Strickland said, "the 12-year-old. Pruitt confirmed it. Another silence. "She still has it?" "Still has it." Strickland picked up his coffee cup. He put it down without drinking. "What does she want?" "We don't know," Pruitt said. "She hasn't told anyone." Back in Carver County, Nora wrote one sentence in the notebook on a Tuesday evening in September and closed it. "They're out of parcels." June was at the counter. She turned around. "Is it time?" she asked. "Not yet," Nora said. June nodded. She knew what not yet meant from Nora. It meant soon. The call came on a cold morning in October 2025. Nora was at the kitchen table with her coffee. The notebook was open to a blank page. Her phone screen lit up. A number she didn't recognize. City area code. She looked at it for a moment. She picked it up. Callum Pruitt was talking before she finished saying hello. He said Hartwell was prepared to make a final offer. He said the number was $1.1 million. All cash. County recorded transfer within 30 days. He said it fast, the way lawyers say things when they've run out of slower options. Nora let him finish. Then she said, "I'm not selling." Silence. A long one. He asked what she meant. She told him she would have her daughter call him back. She hung up before he could answer. Clara Callan drove down that Saturday. She was a property attorney now, 31 years old, with a calm that came from knowing what documents meant and which ones people forgot to check. She spread everything across the kitchen table. The original deed from 2010. The 1961 County Commissioner's memo with the conditions clause. The manila envelope with 15 years of consecutive tax receipts. Nora's blue notebook, worn at the spine, with every offer date and amount written in small, careful print. Clara read in silence for 40 minutes. The kettle came on. June poured without asking who wanted what. Clara turned one page in the notebook. She looked at the hand-drawn map. She looked at the 1956 corridor survey Nora had copied by hand when she was 11 years old. She looked up. "You've had this since before the auction?" "Since the summer before," Nora said. Clara looked at her mother for a moment. Then she picked up her phone and called Pruitt back. Pruitt arrived at the hearing room 2 weeks later with 2 colleagues and a 3-part legal challenge. His strategy was to move fast and file hard before Nora could establish a formal easement claim on the record. First argument: the easement had never been registered and couldn't be enforced. Clara placed the 1961 memo on the table. She read the conditions clause aloud. She cited 3 state cases. She said 7 sentences total. Pruitt moved to his second argument. Agricultural use had lapsed during the 1993 and 1994 flood years. The land had been unworkable. The continuous use claim was broken. Clara placed the tax records on the table, one for each year, including 1993, including 1994. The county had assessed the parcel as active agricultural land every single year, and Dale Callan had paid every bill. On time. She said 2 sentences. Pruitt's third argument was longer. Nora had been a minor at signing. The transfer was voidable. The deed should be invalidated on procedural grounds, and the parcel returned to First Meridian's successor entity. Clara placed the original deed on the table and pointed to the second signature line. Dale Callan, present, co-endorsing, perfectly legal, and no challenge had been filed within the statutory window, which had closed in 2012. She said 4 words, "That window is closed." The judge ruled in 11 minutes. The challenge failed on all 3 grounds. Pruitt reached for his phone before he was fully out of his chair. Nora was not at the hearing. She was at the kitchen table when Clara called. June was at the counter. The radio was on at low volume. Clara said, "All 3. Clean sweep." Nora looked at the window. "Okay," she said. Clara said Pruitt would call within the hour to discuss terms. He called in 40 minutes. Nora let Clara handle the negotiating. She listened from the other chair, coffee in hand. The terms were not a sale, a permanent agricultural easement. Hartwell acquired the right to develop the corridor in exchange for a monthly access payment to Nora Callan, indexed to inflation, transferable to her heirs. $4,200 a month. Mineral rights retained by Nora. Water table access retained. Right of first refusal on any future corridor subsale. Pruett pushed back twice. Clara waited both times until he finished, then said the same thing. Those are the terms. He accepted everything on the third exchange. Clara called her mother. Done, she said. Nora said 3 words, call your grandfather. The signing was at the county clerk's office on a Wednesday. Nora arrived in her truck. She wore the green coat, older now, restitched at one pocket. She signed where the clerk pointed. She walked back to the truck. She opened the blue notebook to the last page. She wrote one line. October 29th, 2025. Terms accepted. $4,200. Corridor rights granted. Rights retained. Started March 2010. Done, she closed it. She put it on the seat beside her. Across town, Boyd Strickland read the 3-paragraph notice in the Carver County Register. His name wasn't in it. He didn't comment. He set the paper down and looked out his kitchen window for a while. The 4 locals who had sat in those plastic chairs at the 2010 auction and laughed when Boyd handed a 12-year-old a deed as a joke, none of them said anything now either. Some laughs age well. This one didn't. June had the kettle on when Nora got home. No questions, just the kettle. She poured 2 cups and set them on the kitchen table. They drank their tea. Outside, the bottomland sat flat and brown and still. In late October, the same as it had looked in 2010, the same as it had looked in 1963, when her grandfather planted sorghum in wet soil because he liked sorghum. $4,200 a month. Every month. For the rest of her life. And it started because a banker handed a 12-year-old girl a worthless piece of land as a joke and walked away laughing. Boyd Strickland collected power. Nora collected patience. One of those things compounds over time. The other one runs out. Would you have taken the $1.1 million cash offer, or held out for the monthly terms that pay for the rest of your life? Tell us below. And if you've been watching since Act 1, you already know which one Nora would choose.